Welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show. And over the last 12 years, I've made a real concerted effort to track down cats who were on the bandstand long before I was ever born in all different parts of the country. And I really had a beautiful connection. I don't know, maybe 9-10 years ago, I had the great honor of interviewing one of the baddest cats in the world, a guy named Russell Smith, who just really blew my mind open about the regional sounds that were coming out of, the southeastern part of the United States with Randy's record shop and all different types of, upholstered sewers that these cats would play and road dog it all over the place. It ultimately came out with a band called the Amazing Rhythm Aces, which has just been such a pivotal band for me in my movement, being able to blend all different styles of music into their bag. And I get a chance today to speak to a guy who really added so much color and texture to that band and so many other groups with a swirling Hammond organ, and really connected with him on Facebook, and now get a chance to hang with him on the show. Billy Earheart, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Hey, Jake, thanks, man. I appreciate you letting me be part of this. I'm looking forward to it.
It's an honor, man. I have to ask you, the first time, do you remember the first time that the Hammond organ in your memory was brought in from the church to the nightclub? I know you were born in 54, but in the late 60s, that was really happening where, you had that Hammond organ moving into the nightclub. And I just kind of wanted you to talk a little bit about if that was the first time you got behind the organ.
I started off playing piano when I was about 8 years old, just little stuff that a piano teacher was trying to teach me, and that wasn't what I wanted to play. So I told my mom, I said, I'm just going to learn songs off the little 45s I buy and just get in a band. And so I got a combo organ, a little Farfisa, and had that for a few years, and then got a Hammond M2, a little bit smaller, more of a spinet organ, but actually it was very similar to a B3 in the tone. Then I went up a step. That was in like about 67, 68 maybe. Then about 71, I got a big Hammond C3, which is like a B3 that's a church model.
Oh,
it's got
man.
No four legs. It's got sides,
Right.
But it's just exactly like a B3, only it's got sides instead of four legs. And I got a 59 model and a couple of Leslies, and I got really turned on to it, I'm going to say about 61 or 62.
So you were just a little boy at that point.
Yeah. It was Booker T and the MGs.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I wanted. That's what I wanted to. First of all, I needed to get this on the record with you. A lot of cats, they play left-hand bass with the B3. Did you actually, when you got the C3 model, were you playing like organ drum duos and kicking pedals?
No.
It's fine. Most cats don't. I've
got the pedals. Yeah. I've still got my organ and Leslie and pedals and everything, but I always work with a great bass player Jeff Stick Davis with a
Dude, that is he still with us or has he left this planet?
He's still around. He's just south of Tampa, playing around down there.
Dude, he is you guys were cooking. Talk to me about Stick Davis, dude. That dude, you always cooked the groove, but you didn't need to you didn't need any bass lines. He was taking care of it.
Yeah. I really wasn't that proficient at playing bass with my feet. I mean, I could do it a little bit, but not anything like him. He's just world-class bass player, man. But we did the Aces for years and years, and then also got a chance to do a bunch of tours all over Europe with blues artists from Nashville. My friend Fred James was a record producer. He got Bluesland Productions, and he was cutting records on a whole bunch of Nashville blues artists that were on Excello Records.
Wow.
A bunch of stuff around in the 60s.
Whoa.
And he rejuvenated their career. We cut albums on them and then went to Europe and played big festivals over there, Lucerne, Switzerland, and Holland, and Austria, and France, and England, and
who were some of the cats that he rejuvenated?
Johnny Jones.
Wow.
Johnny played guitar on the TV show The Beat, 1966. There was a blues R&B TV show. They only lasted 1 year, 1966, but they had, like Freddie King and a bunch of different blues artists on there. Gatemouth Brown.
Oh, yeah.
Johnny Jones was in the house band. And then he got a gig with Bobby Blue Bland. And did that for a while. And then another one was, we did about 20 different ones, maybe more. Charles Wig Walker, and he was making soul and blues records back in the late 50s and had a couple little singles that did good.
Wow. Dude, you're blowing my mind away. I mean, so okay, continue. So these cats were coming up like, at least that one you just mentioned, the Wig, he was coming up around that sort of Hank Ballard and the Midnighters R&B time?
Yeah, it was late 50s, and he had several different record deals. He moved to New York. He was in Nashville for a while. He's from Nashville. I did about 5 albums with him, and we did the Lucerne Festival 2 or 3 times in Switzerland. And Jeff Stick Davis played on all that, too.
Oh, my gosh.
He also played with B.B. King and Jesse Winchester, and me and him played with Memphis Slim. Went out on tour with him.
This is
Rufus Thomas. And
would you say that, like, these cats, these were Nashville blues players?
Some of the ones I just mentioned were. Some of them were from Memphis. We moved to Memphis in the early 70s, 73, and started recording Amazing Rhythm Aces stuff. We had about 25 nice tracks, and Sam Phillips' son, Knox, got us a record deal. They wanted 12 of them, so we've still got we've got a couple of albums in the can. we had several extra
wow.
tracks left over that didn't actually go on the record. But we did like 25 albums over a 40-year span. And I didn't know you talked to Russell, but, he did, he kind of stopped wanting to do the Amazing Rhythm Aces because he got a chance to make big money on a solo record deal. He got about $50,000, and so it's all of a sudden, well, I'm not going to be going on tour. I'm going to be writing songs for a publishing company in Nashville. So that's when me and Stick, we got a gig with Al Green and toured with him for a year and a half.
Billy, I gotta ask you. I mean, at 44, can you talk about the popularity of the not Al Green, clearly Al Green, High Records, and the guy was obviously an international star, but some of these unsung cats, were they well known in Europe? Was that music consumed, the commerce consumed in Europe, as opposed to similar to the jazz musicians here in the States as well, where they were much more popular in Japan and Europe than in the States?
Yes, they were. They have a whole lot of people that they just love, that late 50s, early 60s, mid 60s R&B stuff from Excello and they were more popular over there because they just have an appreciation more for blues and soul and R&B.
Not really a color bar over there either, right? I mean, there is racism, but it's not. Part of it's just I remember talking to John Mayall, and the blues guitar player, and he just was talking about in England, there just wasn't a color bar, and in the States that's always been the case, in some way, shape, or form. And I know that you were, somebody who was infatuated, and probably a lot of your heroes were people of color. So it's just always,
most all of them,
right? And I just feel like you guys were Stick, Russell before he got the big dollars, but just I gravitate to you guys because you weren't hypocritical. You didn't turn your back on the people that got you, that basically inspired you to become musicians in the first place.
Yeah, we had a real appreciation for the old school kind of stuff. And when we got together in '73, it was a year and a half before we got our album out. Our first Third Rate Romance was our first single. It went almost, I think it got to number 11 in the nation, and on the pop chart, and it did real good on the top 10 on the country chart, I think, but number 1 in Canada. It just, they still play it on Mississippi all the time where I live, but
I got to be honest. I mean, that's the most popular track, but there are a couple of tracks on there, man, bring me to tears, dude. Were there other radio-friendly hits from that album?
Yeah, we also had a top 10 record called Amazing Grace, used to be her favorite song. It was kind of, Russell wrote it for Jerry Lee. It was kind of,
right,
quasi-gospel country flavored thing with a steel guitar. We didn't really want to be a country band. We were more into maybe soul country or blues country or something.
Oh, I love it so much. Exactly.
We weren't like, back then when we got we got a Grammy Award in '76 and some CMA stuff, but they didn't even have bands. It was like Oak Ridge Boys, a quartet, the Statler Brothers. That was who was up for the group of the year. They were all like quartets and stuff like that. There wasn't hardly any country bands. Like Pure Prairie League. They were kind of in same kind of thing, but they weren't in Nashville in the charts there.
Totally, dude. I love where you're, because they were also like a similar, really good chops. I mean, would you say that, like, let's just talk about this, like, it's not really a fine line, but like country bands, to me, a lot of just very much playing in 4/4 time, a lot of just sort of formula trip kind of tunes. I'm wondering, when you talk about country soul, because there's a lot of grease in the Amazing Rhythm Aces. You guys bring a lot of grease, you and Stick. I mean, were there certain songs that would lend themselves to leaving the head of the tune and stretching out? I'm not saying you were a jam band. I'm just saying, did you improvise more than a traditional country band?
Oh, yeah. We had, it was mainly after on the 5th album we did in Muscle Shoals, and we had the Muscle Shoals horns playing on several tracks, and we cut Love and Happiness, the Al Green song, and there was a lot of jamming going on in that. Everybody took solo, but not a whole lot of jamming going on.
When the Stacked Deck came out, that first album, I mean, when you were on tour, did you guys feel, I don't want to say compelled to play the songs the way they were exactly on the record? Or I'm just, part of me feels like, you had the Marshall Tucker Band, and you had other bands that maybe there'd be one or two tunes. I just love cats that they play beyond what they know. Of course, then maybe you're alienating the audience. But I just wonder, like, early on, not by the 5th, not in the studio, but like live, early on after that first record, when you were touring like Road Dogs, were there any tunes that actually lent themselves to, you take a solo, whatever? I mean, was there anything like that?
Not a whole lot of jamming situations on that first little tour.
Big.
Actually, we were trying to play them as close to the record as we could, and we had 2 keyboard players. James Hooker, an incredible player.
Dude, Hooker. I'm sorry. I just was like, you came before Hooker in the band, though?
Yeah. Me and Stick and the drummer Butch and Russell came to Memphis to record, and we ended up getting James and our producer, engineer, Bird, to play guitar. He played a lot of the mandolin and acoustic guitar and steel and dobro, and he was a very versatile guy. He did it about 3 years, and then he split.
I want you to talk to the audience, especially younger cats, about you and Hooker. I mean, Miles Davis had at one point Keith Jarrett on Vox organ, Chick Corea on electric piano, and I just think in your context, I would love you to talk. You and Hooker were pros already at that point, still young. How did you learn to stay out of each other's way, and how would you sort of play off of each other? Because too much language can get kind of messy, but
absolutely,
you know what I'm saying?
We just kind of both of us kind of laid back on most of the things, and depending on the arrangement, might be more of a guitar influenced thing, and I might play electric piano, and I played piano on Third Rate Romance. James wasn't even on the record, and a couple more he wasn't on. Amazing Grace, that was a hit. But
Amazing Grace was a hit too. I'm looking here. I'm trying to find. It's either Emma Jean or
Emma Jean,
something about so. I mean, it's just my daughters and I. We listen. It's just the most beautiful album. I mean, it just sounds like you guys were almost trying to pinch yourselves. It was almost too good to be true. You know, just to be able to make a record, have all these tunes, and then be able to present them to people. You guys sounded really happy at that time.
We were happy because we hadn't been working too much for a year and a half because we were sneaking in the studio, and Bird was he was the studio manager. So when they didn't have anything going on, we could sneak in there and try to cut tracks, you know. That's what I was saying. We had about 25 for that first album, and they used 12 of them. But so we've got 12 or 13 just sitting there.
Did you have a chance? Go ahead, continue.
I'd love to get a little record deal, like or some kind of box set thing that's got all the tracks that never were released.
So out of that bushel of tunes, some of those stayed in the can, never made it onto the next record or any other records.
Yeah, there's about 13 of them that I think, or maybe 10.
Oh, that's got to happen. I mean, we got to make a project out of that, my man. That is unbelievable.
I'm going to try to do that. I've got one just came out last year. It was a live show we did in Germany, and when Russell Smith died, the German folks that had the nightclub, they hired an entire live studio rig to bring it in to record our show to do a radio simulcast.
Wow.
And he contacted me and was telling me how sorry he was about Russell dying, and were we going to continue? And I said, no, we can't do it after Russell's gone. He wrote too many of them. Everybody wrote a little bit, but he wrote the majority of them.
Right.
We're just not going to try to get somebody to replace him. But so anyway, these Germans said, oh, we want to put this record out. It was simulcast on the radio in 2000, so it was 23 years ago. And it just was bootlegged all over Europe.
Wow.
Because it was on the radio, people were making cassettes of it.
Totally.
And he said, we know it's been out and been all over just from Aces fans and collectors collecting cassettes or whatever. But we want to do a nice double CD on it. And I said, well, let's do it. Just go ahead and do it. And whatever money we get, I'm going to give Russell Smith's sons his share. He's got 2 boys. And me and Stick took a share. James had left the band. He played with Nancy Griffith for about 20 years, and he was gone doing that.
Mm-hmm. I think Hooker. I know you played with Al. If I'm going to send you the Russell Smith interview because it was one of the most profound interviews that I've done. 1800. It was one of my favorites, and I thought he was talking about Hooker being in the high studios, high records studios with Al Green.
Yeah, he cut a bunch. He used to tour with Al Green before Me and Stick got the Al Green
Oh,
job.
that's what he said. That's unbelievable.
And he played on a bunch of his records and worked over at High quite a bit.
And of course, you would never know that because they didn't list accompanists, on those albums.
They didn't even list his name on the record.
Ever, yeah.
His real name is James Brown, but he didn't like using that because they were thinking, the Godfather of Soul, James Brown. But
even though James was originally known as Jimmy Brown, but absolutely, James Brown, you got to change that name. There's a few cats. I just want to throw these names out to you. I remember when I interviewed Booker T, he talked about going to Third and Beale, some club, and Jack McDuff was in town, and the output was so heavy from that organ that his pant legs were flapping in the wind. And so between, I just want you to talk about if you've got a chance to see any of these cats, and Jack McDuff, Richard Groove Holmes,
I love those guys.
Jimmy Smith. Did Jimmy Smith come to Memphis? These guys were they were beyond genius, and they were monster characters. And I just, I know you weren't a soul jazz guy. You're definitely a soul country, blue-eyed cat. But did you get a chance to ever see them in person, and just talk about their influence on you?
They were a big influence on me, especially Jimmy Smith and brother Jack McDuff.
Oh yeah.
Jack McDuff came to Memphis and recorded. He did an album.
I know it. Tobacco Road, I think it's called. I don't know.
It's like it's got some barbecue song.
Oh yeah, that's right, dude. I got to look that up. That's exactly right.
A friend of mine played sax on that. Joe Arnold, I think. He was over at Stax for a while. Played with Otis Redding, but brother Jack McDuff was a big influence, and Jimmy Smith, and but there was just nowhere really to play that kind of jazz stuff in Middle Tennessee, where I grew up in Tullahoma, Tennessee, about an hour from Nashville. Then we moved to Muscle Shoals, and then over to Knoxville for a year or two with Russell, trying to put the band together. Butch and Stick were down there too after Jesse Winchester, but didn't get to hear.
Yeah, it's so. I'm so naive because, just the idea that there would be these thriving jazz clubs. It's just the thing is, man. Your generation, and you're a little bit younger than some other cats, but the truth is, Wilton Felder from the Crusaders.
Badass bass player.
Badass, dude. And dude, so when he was playing sax with the Nighthawks, which was the Jazz Crusaders before they moved to the West Coast, Hubert Laws, and Wilton was they would be on tour with, Bobby Blue Bland or B.B. King. Those blues guys could play jazz tunes. They could play Cherokee. They could really play jazz. So in some ways, while there wasn't your jazz, a pure jazz club, the blues and the jazz were just so alongside each other at that time. It's just somehow I feel like it just kind of rubbed off on you through osmosis,
Yeah, I loved it. Being a Hammond player back in the 60s and early 70s, people had mentioned, you got to get the new Jimmy McGriff record.
Yeah.
You got to get the new
Bill Doggett, Earl Bostic.
Yeah, had a bunch of great ones.
Absolutely.
And just a ton of them. While Bill Davis was starting off, Jimmy Smith probably had the most going on in the Hammond world with his records, and such a monster player too.
Oh my God! I mean, this is so. But I want to get this on the record. Billy Earhart. Did you ever, when you had your, spinet, were you playing some of just American songbook tunes? Would you say you ever actually, even before you were maybe professional, did you ever play kind of jazz music to a degree?
Not really.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah.
I did after a couple of years in the Aces, and you all of a sudden you're making a little money, and I'm going to go buy about 15 or 20 albums. We got a week or two off. If you go to the Pop Tunes in Memphis and load up on them, and that's what I would get.
I love it. You were getting Jimmy McGriff, Jack McDuff,
Jimmy Smith, Groove Holmes, all that kind of stuff to try to swipe some licks, get some just feeling and just learning just cool little organ deals,
Oh, I love it. I freaking love it.
And, of course, Booker T. And I had a bunch of friends. I hung with Duck Dunn a bunch in Memphis.
Oh, dude, that is warming my heart. Dude, the man, I'm sorry, dude. Please tell me about Duck, dude. The guy is just so freaking badass.
Just a great guy and funny as hell. When they weren't doing anything at Stax too much, he was in kind of like the house band over at Stax, but when they weren't cutting that much in I want to say the early 80s, some, but it slowed down. He would play with this friend of mine, Randy Haspel, in Memphis, and that's where I got to hang with him. We'd go to some club in Memphis, Poplar Lounge or somewhere, and fucking Duck Dunn.
Wait, hold on. And your friend was playing piano, or what was it was a duo?
No, he had a band.
He had a band.
Haspel.
Yeah.
Had a band, and he was playing R&B and rock and roll, from the 60s. He also was a songwriter, and I had a couple of cuts on George Jones, and he actually was one of the last artists to cut on Sun.
Wow.
Before Sam Phillips sold Sun Records to Shelby Singleton. And Randy Haspel band had a little, a little 45 on Sun Records. That was cool. That was before I knew him, but it was cool to go down there and just see Duck Dunn playing bass, man.
Dude, that must have just been ridiculous, dude.
When Booker T's drummer got murdered, Al Jackson, a friend of mine, came in and took his place. Willie Hall, he's a hell of a drummer.
Dude, I'm going to send you my you're warming. I got to send you my interview with Willie. We had a ball. Willie Hall, unbelievable, the baddest drummer, dude.
Yeah, he's killer, and he did the Blues Brothers, and he did Isaac Hayes.
He did a lot of because when the Bar-Kays died, and then the Marquis came in, that Willie became the house drummer there after that band died in the car wreck, or in the plane wreck rather.
Yeah, they were back in Otis.
That's right.
And yeah, so there's a bunch of good players in Memphis and Nashville, and I mean they're just all over the country, and getting to hang with a bunch of them was special for me, just being, 19 or 20 years old, not much brains, and just mainly kind of trying to maintain a buzz and find some women. You know.
Yo, man, you were doing a heck of a job. I mean, I want to go back to this. This is interesting. Your family moved to Muscle Shoals, or the Aces, before you were the Aces, tried to get a record deal with Rick Hall there?
No, this was in '72 when I got out of high school.
Right.
And I was in a band from Nashville called Annabelle.
Whoa.
The singer named it after his grandmother. And we went down to Muscle Shoals and immediately got a 4-night-a-week job at the only nightclub around for 50 miles.
That's because, dude, that's unbelievable. Because at the time, the only thing that I was aware of down there were the Swampers. I didn't even know there was a nightclub there.
Well, it wasn't actually in the Shoals. It was because you couldn't buy beer or sell beer or any liquor.
It was a dry county, yeah. That's right.
In dry county.
Yeah.
So you had to go 13 miles north of Muscle Shoals, right on the Tennessee line. They had a big, giant honky-tonk. You probably get 500 or 600 in there. And we played Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for about a year and a half. And Russell came down. A friend of ours, Bill Yarborough, brought Russell down there to Muscle Shoals, and his plan was to take the drummer, me, the bass player, and the guitar player, and go to Knoxville and start a new band with Russell. Because the lead singer was wanting to do a bunch of top 40 stuff that we didn't want to do.
Totally.
They was wanting to do Tie Yellow Ribbon Around the Old Oak Tree and just some stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that just bored you to death. No, I dig.
Yeah, it just wasn't something we were going to do.
Right.
And
this is the Annabelle cat, right?
Yeah. Tolly Lee. I did a solo record with him. He's dead now, but hell of a singer. He was more of like a Greg Allman type vocalist, pretty soulful.
Oh,
but
what was his first name? Tolly?
Tolly, Tollie.
Oh, so you did but basically he wanted to do top 40 and you were like, that ain't going to happen. So then you and Russell kind of Stick wasn't in the picture at this point.
Stick had played with Russell and the drummer Butch McDade, who passed away in '98. He was original Aces drummer.
Right, unbelievable drummer.
Called Fatback in Knoxville, Tennessee. And they were playing little bars and had some original stuff and kind of playing greasy R&B and blues and
it's great. It's freaking great.
Stuff.
Oh my god!
And then the drummer Butch and Stick Davis got a call to come to Montreal and join Jesse Winchester's band.
Wow!
So they went up there for a year, and that's when I went to Knoxville and hooked up with Russell. And then Stick and Butch did a Jesse Winchester album, Learn to Love It, and he cut Third Rate Romance with Butch singing.
No, he didn't.
And he did The End Is Not in Sight that we won a Grammy for. But
you just kind of went to Never Ever Land on me. Yeah, before the Aces, Butch and Stick went to hook up with Winchester in camp.
They played with him for about a year, mainly in Montreal. They did a couple of West Coast tours and Played Toronto some, but mainly in Montreal.
But that those tunes, those tunes, though they were already sort of in the ether. How did he even get hip to those tunes?
They cut the record, and then right before it came out, they had some kind of disagreement over the money, and Butch and Stick said, "Well, we quit. We're going back to Knoxville." And me and Russell were sitting there waiting on them, and that's when we put the Rhythm Aces together. And went to Memphis. We cut about 5 or 6 songs, and then we found out what the deal was. That if we would move to Memphis, we could record at Sam Phillips' recording studio anytime they didn't have anything going on. And the guitar player, Bird Burton, that was also the Aces producer for the first 3 or 4 albums, he said, "If you guys can come down here, we'll cut a good album or two's worth of material and see what happens. Maybe we can get Sam's son to get us a deal." And he did. We just out of the blue, he pulled it off, and we had one crew guy to drive a truck and set up the stage.
Wow.
And
one roadie, one dude.
We were like the national opening act at that point. Third Rate Romance was on every radio station, playing all the time, and so it was easy to book. Like, we opened for Fleetwood Mac, we did Loggins and Messina, Willie and Waylon. We did a whole year with Jimmy Buffett. They all had big, giant crowds. I mean, packed.
Like huge, like coliseums, right? Like stadiums.
Yeah, huge, big coliseums, and we just had to go out there and do 40 minutes. But we killed them. It went over great. And so we kept on getting a lot of dates, and ended up, we did the long run tour with the Eagles. We did another Jimmy Buffett tour in '76. We were both on the same label on ABC Records.
Absolutely.
But
well, I want to go back for a second. This is really important. Third Rate. This is what it says here on Wikipedia, for what it's worth. Third Rate Romance is a song written by Russell Smith, first recorded in Montreal in 1974 by Jesse Winchester and his band, the Rhythm Aces, assisted by Smith. It became a hit the following year by the newly reformed Amazing Rhythm Aces on its 1975 album Stacked Deck. So, and that's when it went to number 11 on the country single charts, 14 on Billboard, number 1 in Canada, et cetera, et cetera. So,
yeah, Jesse didn't want to put that out as a single because Butch was singing it. Jesse just said, "Well, let's do that Third Rate Romance song," because he had played him a rough copy of it, and he let Butch sing it on Jesse's album.
That's incredible. And that album came out. That was pressed and available to the public.
Yeah, it came out, and we had already moved to Memphis, and 74, and we're working on the first album, and Jesse was just by himself at that point. He never did get another band. He just kind of did it by himself, but he was such a great writer. I was I was amazed that he would do anybody else's material, but he really loved that song and the End Is Not in Sight. The one thing about that was they got a great guitar player to play on that Jesse Winchester Learn to Love It album, Amos Garrett.
My dear friend, another dear friend. He's in my 5th book that's about my interview with him. I cannot believe Amos played on that record.
Yeah, he played on an original Third Rate Romance and End Is Not in Sight, too. But not our version. But,
so, and it says the newly reformed Amazing Rhythm Aces. Was that band in existence before Billy Earheart came into the scene?
No, when they came down from Canada and hooked back up with Russell, who they had played with for a few years before I came into the scene, then
they were called the Rhythm Aces. I mean, I'm just trying to, because it says like
they were Jesse Winchester and the Rhythm Aces.
Dig.
It was like those Rhythm Ace machines that would accompany an organ player or something. It's like got a little drum beat.
Oh, I love this, dude. That is.
And we were going to just be the Rhythm Aces, and they said, well, it's already copyrighted. It was Bobby Moore and the Rhythm Aces, and they had Searching for My Baby in the 60s.
Right.
But they had it copyrighted. So we just kind of came up with the Amazing Rhythm Aces, and that one passed
That passed muster. I mean, dude, it is so freaking amazing. I mean, can you talk a little bit about just sort of moving into the modern era? I'm not saying that you were somebody that would stretch out and take as many bars as you wanted, but where do you stand in terms of your improvisational chops? I mean, did you ever? Was that something that, because I mean, people can tell a story in 1 minute of a solo, but I'm just curious about how if you put it on yourself over the years to become a better instrumental improvisational player.
Yeah, I've been working on that for over 50 years.
I dig, man.
66 was my first gig, but you just try to. It's a never-ending process of learning, when to not play and, the different grooves and playing major key or minor key or mixing it up and just learning how to do it. And then you got to kind of know how to play in every key.
That's right.
So,
I mean, that's kind of the thing. I mean, Charlie Parker would put on the radio and a country western station, and he'd learn to play the song in every key. Your ears become huge. Where do you think your ears grew the most on the bandstand? To me, like, one of the fascinating things about your early career, the early Booker T and the MGs, when I interviewed Cropper, I mean, past the first couple of rows, most people couldn't really even hear the music. The PA systems were so antiquated. It was, and I just can imagine the on-stage sound. Sometimes you maybe weren't necessarily able. I mean, Stick wasn't playing an upright bass. You weren't playing acoustic music. But sometimes you probably had to really listen. I mean, you had to listen hard, your generation. And I just wonder where you think your ears, looking back on it, grew the most on the bandstand.
Stick was playing an upright bass on some things.
He was?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I mean, you mean on the record or live?
On the record and live.
That is so freaking class. You're telling me but he wasn't always that acoustic bass wasn't always didn't have an amp, right?
He had a real nice pickup put on it where he could plug it into his amp. he had that acoustic bass before he had an electric bass.
I'm loving this so much, dude. I am loving this, dude. So you were playing, and you were playing acoustic piano, or were you already playing organ?
I mainly played organ. Occasionally, I played a little piano. James mainly played the piano. I played on about three or four different songs. I played piano on. Third Rate Romance, Love and Happiness. Amazing Grace used to be her favorite song, but mainly organ. And
what's amazing is that the fact that it's like I'm trying to envision Stick playing an upright bass fiddle at a opening for Jimmy Buffett at a Coliseum. I mean, that would not be easy to generate sonically. You know, I mean, it's amazing that he was able to do that.
Yeah, if you got a really nice pickup, you know, several $100s for a little pickup mounted, you know, down there where they put it, and it just sounded great. So deep and fat, you know, it's like he's got upright bass chops too, so he's played electric bass like that, like like a jazz guy, you know, Charles Mingus or somebody.
He has the upright chops of a jazz player.
Almost.
Yeah. No, he didn't. He never went to New York and tried to make it as a jazz bassist. But that to me is so unbelievable. I just assumed he was always on Fender bass. That to me is mine.
Yeah, he had a nice '62 Fender jazz bass and a Precision, I think, from '65 or something. He had a couple of. Then he had really. Beautiful K upright bass, had Slouch Hat written on it. When he bought it, it was on there. I guess some guy in the 40s used to use it. He was from Indiana.
Wow.
Evansville, Indiana, and got that first before he got an electric Fender.
You know, Billy, I want to do. We just burned through an hour here. I want to do set 2 as soon as possible because we're just getting cooking. But my final question in set 1 is: did you cross paths with the great drummer Levon Helm?
A couple of times. Just not really getting to hang out, but
I guess maybe the better question is, it's more like the touring circuit that you were on, not locally when you would open for the big bands, but like who would you get teamed up with or on a bill per se? Like, I mean, maybe not the band, but like if you were doing stuff, what was like the craziest? Because I mean, back then, I mean, it wasn't out of the question that like the Amazing Rhythm Aces potentially would open for like Grand Funk Railroad, or Herbie Hancock would open for Iron Butterfly.
Yeah, we did a bunch of weird things. Like we opened for Rick Wakeman one time.
I love this, dude.
We opened for Brenda Lee, the country gal.
Sure,
you know.
Sure, yeah.
We did a bunch of dates with Freddie Fender. Ton of them with Waylon and Willie, and I told you the Eagles and Fleetwood Mac, but we had some oddball Kansas one time we opened.
Wow!
But this is in the mid '70s, late '70s, maybe.
Absolutely, no. I mean, because I'm just wondering also, like, were you primarily a regional touring band, or did you go to places like San Francisco and New York as well?
We went to every state. We played all 50.
Wow.
Yeah, we'd go to New York. We played the Troubadour in L.A.
That's right.
Played San Francisco.
Where would you play in San Fran? Where would you play?
We played the Boarding House.
Oh, my God. This is great.
We played the Great American Music Hall in San Francisco.
Absolutely. It makes all the sense in the world. It's so beautiful, man. That's just so beautiful. I mean, you were no hippie band, that's for sure. You know, it was not a skiffle band, but it's so beautiful that you guys were able to not just make pop hits, but then just, I don't know, it was a magical era. You feel blessed in your life, Billy?
Oh, very much so. Very much so. And then we had, Russell had a little thing where he was writing for publishing companies, and he had a little, with one of the Eagle guys, Bernie Ladden, and a couple other guys, they had run C&W, and they did kind of a soul bluegrass thing. It was kind of a comedy record,
right?
Almost. But while Russell was doing that, I fell into a Bocephus, Hank Williams Jr., 21 years worth of touring with him all over the world too.
Well, why don't we just pick up set 2 with Hank Williams, all right?
All right.
Does that sound good?
That sounds good.
It's so beautiful to talk to you, man. It's such an honor to connect with you, and I will get this set up later tonight, and then we'll plan to do set 2, if not this week, next week.
Sounds good, man. I appreciate you.
Hey, and
I appreciate you asking me, man.
Hey, man, no, dude, listen, man, you're one of the cats, and let me tell you, I'm going to send you the Russell Smith and Willie Hall interviews. I've been on this journey for 12 years, man, so to connect with you is really the highest honor, brother. We'll do it again.
All right.
All right, baby. Be cool, man. Much love. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, be cool, baby.
You too.
Bye.